Basketball. Basketball. Basketball.
Basketball is back, Jack. Time for our favorite winter sport. The summertime is over, so let's head down to the court. Time for the tip-off. Give me fast breaks on the attack. Will you shoot a three or take it to the rack? Basketball is back, Jack. It's a dream shake down in the post, or a killer cross you love the most. When the offense tries to run and gun, is it man-to-man or box and one? It's big plays and talking smack. That's how you know that basketball is back, Jack. Let me hear you say
Basketball. Basketball. Basketball.
basketball is back, Jack. 360 dunks and pick and rolls. And we're gonna watch it every day till they raise the Larry O. Hard fouls and hook shots. A dagger three and hack a shack. If you say this game's the best, I'll say's a gag. Basketball is back, Jack. Basketball is back, Jack. Basketball is back. Basketball is back, Jack.
Look at the Talladega Twins back there. They seem closer than they were before they were together this weekend and consumed all of Talladega together. We will cover that a little bit later. But I want to ask you, Zaz, what's more offensive to you inside of the sports journalism realm? That Greg Cody of the Miami Herald would have one reaction to the Dolphins' first-round pick, and then a couple of days later, when no games have been played, change his mind and apologize? Or Tony going from calling the Orlando Magic a joke clown car of a franchise to 4 games later saying they're going to be in the Eastern Conference Finals?
I think we give Tony, or at least we hold off on giving it to Tony over the Magic. You got to win 4 in the first round, Dan, not 3, okay? If the Pistons come back and win this series, then Tony would be absolutely right, because a joke of a franchise would blow a 3-1 lead, all right? So maybe he's actually prescient here.
Thank you. He's not prescient when a team's winning, shooting 32% and 38% because of how bad the Pistons are. Cade Cunningham having 24 turnovers in 3 games is something that hasn't been seen in the sport before. That's lunacy for their best player to be that bad. And then all of a sudden you've got a Kane dunk that Tony's also making an all-timer. He's putting it on the all-time list of best dunks he's ever seen.
In game, that might be one of the best dunks I've ever seen. Obviously, we had the Vince Carter in game where he jumps over the guy from France who's 7 feet tall, which was incredible. But as far as like catching a body,
Weiss.
Yeah, thank you. You're good with names, by the way.
I know.
Well, that is a memorable one, though. It's all we know about Frederick Weiss is that Vince Carter jumped over the entirety of him.
We know something else, that the Knicks drafted him over Ron Artest, and he never showed up.
Well, you know that. I believe most people, if I say Frederick
It's a good nugget,
Weiss, it is a good nugget. But
the Knicks.
What's a better nugget is a human being jumped over a 7-footer and dunked during the Olympics, jumped over the entirety of a 7-footer.
Again, that's why I said that stands in the pantheon of great in-game dunks. But Jamal King caught a body, cranked it back, and then finished throughout. It was incredible.
So great in-game dunks. You're talking Vince Carter, Blake Griffin, Anthony Edwards, Jamal Cain?
I mean, again, take the names out of it. You want to put LeBron James there, and he does exactly what he did. Like, it's an all-timer. The same thing, the Jason Terry alley-oop where LeBron dunks it over him. That's a great moment, too.
Let's all relive that.
Yeah, but
Wade on Verjao.
That's a good one, too.
Oh, his sneakers were facing up.
The thing you guys are doing, though, is they're all-time dunks, but they're also all-timers dunking. It really, it's just not allowed to be Jamal Cain.
Early in his career, Dan. He's got a lot of time left.
But it's not allowed to be Jamal Cain. It can't be an all-time dunk if it's not an all-time dunker.
This guy's just trying to distract from the fact that he was taking a victory lap all year on Cade Cunningham.
Whoa. We're talking about the Magic right now, please.
Well, let's talk about the Pistons because Amin got this right. They cannot shoot. And yesterday they were trusting Tobias Harris and Duncan Robinson a lot, and that's dangerous to do when 2/5 of your starting lineup is Tobias Harris. And your two best guys have been terrible in this series. Like your two all-stars have also been terrible, but the Magic winning that game, the Magic and the Raptors winning their games this weekend. Did the Raptors shoot 11% from three? Did they shoot 32% for the
terrible.
game? And they shot 11. How do you win those games? That's all just length on the perimeter defending. You've got just athletes defending in Orlando and Toronto, and you can win a game shooting 32% that way.
Well, styles make fights, and Amin and I were talking just before we got going here. Suggs is a problem in terms of a point of attack defender. He is giving Detroit all they can handle. It seems as though Orlando is specially equipped for the Detroit Pistons.
I have to stop short of patting myself on the back on that one. If you had asked me, because remember, I was telling, I don't know about these Pistons. When they were number one, there was a time when they were number one in the league, better than the Thunder even. And I said, I don't know about these Pistons. I don't know. And I talked about experience, and Dan was like, you keep going back to experience. You like the old guys. I'm like, look, man, I just know that when it comes to execution basketball, you need people who know what they're doing. And one playoff trip where you gave the Knicks a good fight, that's not enough experience to overcome your lack of shooting, your lack of free throw shooting, and your turnover problem, and the fact that you have one player who makes all the plays. Now, had you said to me, Amin, you know who's going to do it to them? The Orlando Magic? I'd be like, come on, let's not be ridiculous. So that's where I stopped short. I'm not going to say I saw this coming from Orlando, but I definitely saw it coming to Detroit.
To the Jalen Suggs point, by the way, his stat line, 1 for 13 from the floor, 1 for 11 from 3, plus 17 for the game.
Yeah, but I told you about this. Charlotte had trouble getting the ball over half court on him. Like he's a problem defending the perimeter. But let's talk locally about what's happening in basketball here, because I don't know that I've ever reacted to a Pat Riley press conference that way. I was just wincing. I was wincing at the state of the franchise, and I was wincing at some of the things said. Now, I've been saying around here that that's a consortium of 5 that run the Miami Heat, that it's not just him. But him saying himself yesterday, I'm not final say. It's never been me as final say. It's just conveniently placed to be saying that when he's never said it, and the organization at large has benefited greatly from concealing that, from always making it about the mythology of Riley. But I would say now, less than ever, does he have what you would consider final say. It's always been 5 people talking, but when he gets out there and does his annual press conference and says he's not retiring after Amin spent yesterday wondering whether that would be a retirement press conference for Pat Riley at 81 years old, when he gets into a back and forth with Barry Jackson on saying, I'm not trading Bam. There's no circumstance under which I am trading Bam. Zaz, how did you experience that press conference yesterday before we get to some of the sound from it?
It felt, well, the first thing I would say as far as it being convenient that he says he's never had final say, I think, as I expected him to, he was responding to this back and forth that there's been on social media. Now, what is the timing of that? I don't know, because it's not really anything new as far as the dynamic with the team, but there has been this weird discussion on social, which we know Pat Riley's not monitoring himself. Somebody's bringing it to him. PR is bringing it to him, saying, hey, this is what people are talking about online right now. So that, to me, is why he addressed it the way that he did. But I found it to be a lot of the same old. There were a couple things that stood out to me that I didn't like, but for the most part, yeah, I thought it was very similar to the press conference last few years.
When you say same old, though, I would go old same. Like, what's happening here with Pat Riley at 81 years old? 81 years old. The court gets named after him. The Lakers are giving him a statue. He's getting all the things you get with the eulogy while he's still coaching. And I don't believe, or while he's still in management, I don't actually believe that there is a person or a group of people that you would put in charge of this that I would trust more than the 5 who are in charge of it. But recent results shake the faith, and when you don't make the playoffs, and that is the press conference, and it's an 81-year-old man doing it, and we've very rarely allowed people to age into this kind of age with grace. That's not something we really allow in sports. And so when I say I'm wincing, it's because the man up there knows what he's accomplished, knows what he's done, is secure in that knowledge. But things have moved fast the last 5 years, and the Orlandos are past them, and the Atlantas are past them, and the Torontos are past them.
Everyone who's trying to win is past them, literally.
Indiana is past them. Well, it's the vantage point that they're watching all of this from is Pat Riley sitting there saying during that press conference, basically what Orlando's doing, that could have been us. We didn't fear Detroit. OKC and the Spurs are in the other conference, so we thought we had enough to beat everyone in this conference. He's never going to admit to fearing the Celtics in any way. And so when I say I'm wincing there, that press conference didn't show anything in the way of self-awareness. It's the same sort of defiance on, I know who I am here. It's who I've always been. You can't take it from me. My status here is secure. It doesn't matter what any of you say. They can't get someone better than me to replace me.
They could have been Orlando. They chose not to be Orlando. Orlando made a big move in the offseason, and it was celebrated until 3/4 of the way down the season where people were questioning it. But Orlando made the aggressive move that hurt. And I thought the real thing that struck with me was this is the first Pat Riley press conference where the media understood the assignment and tried to bring the fight to Pat a little bit, and I enjoyed that.
Can I just point out the hypocrisy? If it had been flipped, if the Heat had acquired Desmond Bane and the Magic had acquired Norman Powell, Mike would be saying the same thing right now. He's saying the same exact thing.
Desmond Bane as an acquisition for that many draft picks to be the 8th seed. Like, they thought they were getting a final piece. That's not a final piece.
Yeah, I hear Amin's point, but I think the point that is made in this press conference is, look, to make a big trade in the NBA, not even for a franchise superstar, but for Bridges, for Rudy Gobert, and for Bane, it took a lot of draft picks. These trades hurt. Everybody, when those trades were made, everybody kind of winced like, man, that's the rate for this? And the Miami Heat flatly don't do those trades.
That's been my biggest problem with the Heat. They don't want it to hurt.
The Miami Heat do not want to do trades that have a little bit of risk in it for them.
We'll see where that goes, but not one of those trades has resulted in anything that is akin to what we've talked about being the
neither is what the
here.
Miami Heat's done. It hasn't resulted in anything.
Okay, all right, but the point Jeremy makes is not an irrelevant one. 5 draft picks, 5 first-round picks for Bridges hasn't amounted to anything. 5 first-round picks for Gobert hasn't amounted to anything. What was it? Was it 5 first-round picks for Bane? It hasn't amounted. 4 first-round picks for Bane hasn't amounted to anything. If the Miami Heat traded that many draft picks for any of those 3 players, you would not like those trades. None of them. You would like none of them. Exactly 0 of them.
Yeah, I mean, go up to New York and ask people how they feel about Mikal Bridges. Like that, like you'd be skewering them, Mike. You'd be killing them right now.
They're all playing basketball right now.
Right.
And
like,
the Miami Heat aren't.
But
the Miami Heat's whole goal is to be playing basketball right now. That is the whole mantra. Let's compete. Let's try to win. These franchises went from trying to lose to trying to win, and they did it quickly and more effectively than the Miami Heat.
Yeah, like I would not like any of those trades. But those teams, and I'm not talking about right now because they're playing, it's the first round. I mean, only one team's been eliminated so far, and it's Phoenix last night. Those teams are contenders. Like they're in it, you know?
Yeah, but they're not in it because of those deals. Maybe Minnesota. Minnesota I'll give you. But New York is not in it because they went out and got Mikal Bridges. They would have been in it anyway if they kept that, Dante DiVincenzo and stayed the course or whatever.
But the thing that I want to say about this, because I know now, and we'll get to the contentious back and forth with Pat Riley and Barry Jackson in a second, but I know now that all of us are in the easy position of seeing the predicament that the Heat are in, and all of us are saying, how could you not see this earlier? How could you not trade Jimmy Butler earlier? How could you not trade Norm Powell earlier? there's a delusion on the self-assessment with all of these franchises we're talking about. The Magic made a trade like they were a piece away. They're not. Minnesota made a trade like they're a piece away. They're not. The Knicks made a trade like they're a piece away, and I don't believe that trade is the one that brings them over the top. I don't think that any of those three trades are good trades.
I think there's a difference between all these things. Minnesota, they are. I mean, they are a championship contending team.
Yeah.
This is good. They've been in the conference finals twice in a row, and if it hadn't been a catastrophic couple of injuries, we'd be sitting here saying, you know what? I think they might do it a third straight year.
Just because they haven't won a championship yet doesn't mean the trade didn't work.
Right, exactly. I think if you're Minnesota, it worked exactly how they wanted it to. Remember, they are designed by the man who designed the Denver Nuggets. They are designed with the idea that we are going to stop. That if we have to get to where we want to go, we got to go through that guy. So I wouldn't. And also, Rudy Gobert is like a 3 or 4 time Defensive Player of the Year. Guys, it's not because he doesn't average 35 a game doesn't mean like, oh, it's not worth it. But we're lumping them in with Desmond Bane, who respectfully, I like him as a good player, has never won anything individually or as a team. And Mikal Bridges, who individually or as a team has never won anything. And that's the difference between those 3 deals. One was from a premium award-winning player, and the other 2 were good role players.
All 3 of the trades are bad because they've stopped trading that amount for anybody in the league. They've just stopped doing it. They don't do it anymore. They did it with those 3, and then everybody stopped doing it after that.
How can you say it's bad when they've been as successful as they've been?
Yeah, what if they won? What if Minnesota wins the whole thing this year?
Wait a minute. You guys are saying as successful as they've been, the Heat have made the finals twice in the last 5 years. You guys keep telling me it's a failure. You guys keep telling me it's a failure. Now Minnesota's a giant success when the furthest they ever go is the Western Conference Finals, and a guy who gets played off the court, who's good to play against Jokic and no one else in the league in the playoffs. That's now the standard for success. Trade 5 first-round picks for Gobert is now the way we're doing it.
That's not the discussion. They made it to the finals, and they were very clearly still a piece away, and they chose – this is a cultural issue. They chose to not make those acquisitions because they stopped short of going all in, of being super aggressive, of making a trade that hurts them.
My point is that the self-analysis and self-awareness of many of these teams is wrong. They all think they can do it. They all feel like the self-assessment is, if we just get all our draft picks for Gobert, we're going to win the championship. And then you're not. If we just get 3-point shooting from Bane, we'll get better. We won't be an 8 seed anymore. If we just if we get the perimeter defense of Bridges, we'll stop the Celtics. We'll be able to slow the Celtics. They've all been wrong.
I'm not trying to have a back and forth here. I'm saying that the Miami Heat were a piece away. And they failed, even while they were succeeding and making to finals. They just couldn't secure the deal that put them over the top because culturally, they don't want to make the move that hurts. And we are cherry-picking a bunch of teams that had to, be it their market or their position right now or just frustration with years of failure. They made moves that hurt, and they're all in the conversation right now. And we'll see how it works out. The Miami Heat are in the position right now that they are because they flatly haven't made a move to improve their chances. Now, hopefully it works out, and they can get a superstar in this offseason, and that's what this whole press conference was about. But in a few short months, they went from reportedly at the deadline liking their team to very clearly not.
They don't want to make moves that hurt. They won't go above what they believe the value of player X is, has been probably my major gripe over the last few years. But I would also say another huge gripe that I have, and we heard Pat Riley talk about this yesterday, they lack the foresight, all right? And meaning Pat thought it was a better idea, or them, the group, they thought it was a better idea to try and compete in the playoffs, which they ended up not making, and keeping Norman Powell, keeping Andrew Wiggins, when the prudent move really would have been selling high on Powell. Now, that would have hurt. It would have hurt to do that in the middle of the season. But it would have shown some foresight where, hey, this is actually a better move for our future. And that's been something really over the last 8, 9, 10 years we could talk about, where it's not being able to show the foresight, with the contracts they've given to certain guys who have played well, and then they sign to multi-year deals. Like, holy shit, we shouldn't have done that.
Let's play the sound here of Pat Riley going back and forth with Barry Jackson on the subject of Bam Adebayo.
No, I wouldn't. And name 3 teams. Give me the 3 teams.
Yeah, so Atlanta.
Name Atlanta. Okay,
Atlanta,
there's Trey.
Trae Young, they're
Okay,
better
okay,
without him.
okay. Who's next?
Indiana moved off Sabonis. They got Halliburton. And Toronto moved off Siakam, and they're better with Ingram and the other pieces they've added.
They're not Bam. I don't think they are. Not in my opinion, anyhow. Especially with your franchise pillar, anchor maker, culture carrier, and a talented guy. Now, I'm not saying that these other players, I think Atlanta's done an incredible job of, it isn't just Trey, it's the moves they made, the players they got. Very quick, very athletic team, playing with no center, by the way. No center. They're all like 6'7", 6'8", but they've been very effective, and I'm not saying that, something would happen, but I want to build this around Bam. I think Mickey wants the same thing, and Nick and Andy and all of us want to. So I'm just going to give you flat out no, I wouldn't do that. Unless somebody gave me 8 picks and Mbaya.
Mbaya.
Who's he?
I'm not going to make fun of anybody getting names wrong, but that is what happens with age. And he also said flatly, and he's not wrong, that Bam's better than all of those players that were mentioned. I do believe the fairest criticism, though, is just the general inconsistency of what do you mean you were going for it this year? Why didn't you trade for KD then? What are you holding on for the young players for if you were going for it all this year?
So that's the tough part about these press conferences is that there are things that you can't say, right? So, Mike, you've been saying reportedly they like their team. Let everyone know how fair I am. You can stop saying reportedly. He said it yesterday. So that is official on the record. They made a decision not to make a move at the deadline. They liked the team that they had at that time. Having said that, you can't say, I didn't want to make a deal for XYZ player because I'm saving myself for Giannis. You can't say that one out loud. But that's the reality. It's like we know they're aggressive. We know all the reporting is that them, Minnesota, and the Knicks are the 3 teams that are really in the hunt for Giannis. And so you can't let the cat out of the bag either strategically or even just rules-wise. I'm saving my nuts for a winter that's coming that's going to have Giannis Antetokounmpo in it.
The word that you heard the most at that press conference was flexibility. So
I say that every year.
No, so this is where things stand, right? Is the issue that we can all go back to is Jimmy Butler, right? They don't move off of Jimmy Butler early enough in the eyes of everyone in this room, myself included. But their strategy in their minds when they looked at their contract going into last season was, all right, come 2027, we're going to have a massive amount of space and flexibility. That's the end of Jimmy. That's the end of all these other contracts. The moves they made in acquiring players for Jimmy kept that flexibility. They kept their picks. They kept their young players, all with the idea of acknowledging you don't necessarily acquire stars via free agency the same way as you did, but having all of that financial flexibility helps you in the trade market in bringing those stars in. Their view was always keep yourself in position for next offseason, and now they're in one where they have all of these expiring deals and can go from there. But that flexibility was the big piece in all of this.
They're going to reinvent it from here. This is unusual, though, because there's less faith in them to do it than at any time that I can remember this management team being in place from the very beginning.
30 years.
And you've got your mythical icon at the top of the franchise. People are reacting to him like he's Joe Biden. Like, that's not something that I've experienced before because I know what the resume of that human being is, and it is disrespectful to make him grandpa forgot how to play basketball. When what Jeremy is saying is right. They've been trying to get themselves into position for Giannis, but I think at this point even that will feel like anticlimax given what's happened in the conference. Given what's happened in the conference, given how many people have passed you in the conference, you're going to be building your team around 2 guys that you don't totally want shooting threes. Bam is better than all of those people we discussed before, Siakam and Sabonis and Young. He's better because his defense is stalwart and he makes them a great team defensively just by being the center of it, no matter who else is with him.
The question is, like, if the Heat strike out on Giannis in this offseason, then what's the conversation going into the next season? Because then the next offseason has a bunch of guys, and now we're just perpetuating the same exact thing all over again with less and less attractive pieces.
Giannis and Bam loses to OKC and the Spurs quickly, and I just didn't think that that's where we would be as a franchise.
Yeah, I wanted the franchise to be closer. I don't think you can look at this roster right now and say they're a Giannis away.
That's crazy.
I think they're going to need to add more to the team, and that's going to require some aggression. Now, it was over a decade ago, but when they felt like they had their franchise player, they went all in. And remember, Bosh and LeBron were actually trades. And if you look back at what they gave up for guys that essentially agreed to free agent deals, it's insane. So they have, in the past, made moves that have hurt. They just fell short in this window.
You always make that point, and nobody remembers that. You make that point all the time that Bosh and LeBron were traded.
Riley brought it up again yesterday.
As he should, because look at it. It put the Cavs in position to get LeBron right back, and it completely depleted the Miami Heat.
We were still paying off that deal when LeBron wasn't even on the team anymore.
And it was because at the last second, right as these guys are going to go on stage for their infamous press conference, not 4, not 5, not 6, not 7, they had to because those guys wanted the extra deals that they ended up the extra years, and those guys ended up opting out of those extra years.
He gently nudged the agents under the bus yesterday. He's like, well, we had to give up 4 first-round picks because, they're agents. And I was like, oh, wow.
And he even said, even though we knew they were going to opt out after 4, we had to give up extra picks so they could have the 5th and 6th year options.
Speaking of local leadership changes, the University of Miami athletic director job has come open, and that is a good job that has come open. And my shoulders sank when I saw one of those insipid your marks is in position to just treat people poorly again as part of a leading of a sports franchise down here, as it's being talked about that he's a front runner. And I'm like, you got to be shitting me. You can't put that guy in charge of something else down here in South Florida.
I was so disappointed when I saw Michael Yormark's name is a front runner. There are reports out there that UM has offered him the job of athletic director. Now, Mike says that that's not true. They have not offered it, okay? But at the very least, he is a front runner to be the new athletic director. This man was the CEO and president of the Florida Panthers when you could make the case they were the most pathetic, embarrassing, incompetent franchise in all of pro sports. And on top of that, this is a nasty man. Like, he was a tyrant. The way that I was Panthers studio host for the radio team for 2 seasons, okay? And that was during his time when he was there. So I had somewhat of a look what was going on there. And the way this man treated people in that building, people who worked their asses off. I'm not going to name names, all right? People who worked their asses off for that team.
I think you can name the names of people who worked their asses off.
Fine.
You worked your ass off.
Fine. Randy Moeller. Okay, I'll just say it. Whatever, all right? There's no one who takes more pride in their job and works harder than Randy Moeller does with the Florida Panthers. Oh. And the way that I saw and heard this man, Michael Yormark, treated some people like Moeller, holy shit, what a nasty man. And to have him as a front runner,
you can't do it.
Oh, it's awful. It's awful if the Miami Hurricanes hire him.
You said awful twice, and the second time you looked at the camera.
That means I'm serious.
You meant it. You can't do this, University of Miami. You can't.
Oh.
Let's go.
Your take is not as strong as that.
Be more creative than this. What? You can't do it. It's forbidden. It's forbidden.
More.
Do not hire the nasty man, University of Miami.
Yeah. He's so nasty.
I was an intern at the Florida Panthers when Michael Yormark was there, and I've been on record as my experience there. And yeah, his reputation isn't great. Dan said be more creative. Those at the University of Miami who have influence that like Michael Yormark would say this is exactly that. This is them trying to be creative. Michael Yormark's brother has done a good job with the Big 12, and they point to the Rock Nation thing. Michael Yormark's been angling for this position for quite some time. His seats are right next to mine. His daughter is a cheerleader at the University
When you
of
took
Miami.
me to the game, I saw him. I pointed him out. I go, there's Yormark right there. I didn't like that.
Yeah,
Did you hold on? Did you tell him he's a nasty man to his face?
No, I don't want to go near him. No,
Sucker.
No, I don't want to go near him. I don't like
the seats
him.
were right next to yours.
Well, not right next. Okay, thank God. I wasn't too close.
I don't
want any of that
that's a thing to
snake
thank
oil
God
dripping
for.
on me.
I don't think you need to thank God that the snake oil salesman wasn't leaking on you. I don't think that's necessary to bother God with that.
Well, thank God for what I choose.
God's like, his secretary's like, I got a Jonathan Zaz on line too. All right, let's see what's he on. Hey, what's up, Zaz? Like,
Just want to thank you for keeping Yormark away from the Hurricanes. That's all.
I do believe that there's going to be a full process here, and other candidates are going to be considered. I
So it's not true that he's been offered.
I can't speak for someone who doesn't have the final say, maybe posturing and really favoring this candidate, but he hasn't been offered the job by the person that is going to be making the call on this. And it's going to be Joe Echeverria that makes the call on this. And by all accounts, the University of Miami is considering more than one candidate here. There is going to be a proper search.
Mike, give us the opposite side. What's the positives? What are they championing him for?
So if you read the Pete Thamel stuff, look, Michael Yormark wants his name out there. This is how Michael Yormark operates. However, it probably lacks some self-awareness in thinking that people would, receive this well because of all the stuff that he's done with Rock Nation and the Big 12 stuff. Kind of overlooked, and certain people at the University of Miami perhaps didn't know his history down here in the market. But they want somebody that is forward-thinking, that doesn't really have a history in college football because college football is changing. They don't want someone from a bygone era. They want someone to take this wherever it goes because we know right now we're sitting in a very weird time for college football.
But there has to be someone else, right, Mike?
The argument,
there has to be.
Argument on his behalf
there are a
would
couple
be
others.
that the Yormark name has an association that's good with business. He might argue that when he was a Florida Panthers executive was early on and that he's learned a lot since then about how to be and has grown out of whatever his fear-soaked role was back then. This is somebody who's considered business ambitious in a city that always has trouble raising funds for anything, a program that has trouble raising funds.
Well, you mentioned the business. The business, I mean, his reputation in terms of how he treated people is one thing. Zaz spoke to that. But business-wise, in talking to people that were at the Florida Panthers, he left them in quite the lurch. There were a lot of trade for ticket deals that did not benefit the franchise at all. It was quite the mess to clean up. And I don't think we can overlook it. It might be circumstantial, but the Florida Panthers franchise turned around when they purged that franchise.
Immediately left. They're one of the best franchises
So are
now.
we looking at free Hurricanes? Like Hurricanes just giving away tickets now if Yormark's in charge?
He presents very well. He has famous friends. DJ Khaled has been his guest at several games. The Rock Nation thing carries a lot of weight until you start pulling back the layers. In America, I think their most famous client is LaMelo Ball. It's kind of like people think Rock Nation is bigger than it actually is, but it does carry weight. And I think that's what people want. They want Miami to be at the cutting edge. Now, Dan Radakovich wasn't that. Dan Radakovich was very much a legacy administrator, but people have all sorts of opinions on Dan. They had the results. Like they did turn things around when they brought him in.
That's crazy to me, right? Because everything I heard about Radakovich was that he wasn't very good as an athletic director, but they did get results. I know that Pat Riley's good at what he does, but he did not get results the last couple of seasons, and now time waits for no one in sports. People are wildly impatient, and so I would just ask you, Amin, as we dissect the local leadership here, if you want the Miami Heat to be forward-thinking, ahead of the curve, unlike they've been the last couple of years, then you have to trade Bam, don't you?
Well, it depends. I'm with Pat in that, like, you got to tell me what I'm getting for him. If you're telling me I'm getting a gajillion picks, or you're telling me I'm getting a young player that we all know is going to be incredible, sure. The problem is many of these scenarios don't involve that, right, when we're talking about these things. To me, the bigger issue is when he says there is zero scenario where we will opt in to being bad in order to tank and get a high pick. He said, the day Mickey and Nick come in my office and say, we're going to do this, is the day I quit. He said that yesterday.
Let's hear Pat Riley in his own words say we're not tanking.
I'm not going to tank, and I can't stand the word. And I know they're now talking about it in the NBA about how can we deal with tanking. I never heard that 15, 20 years ago. There's a 65-game limit on awards. You're just sending out messages to players they don't have to play, and they can still win something. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me, but that's the way it is today.
I was mentioning earlier, that the market has closed down on the idea of we give 4 first-round picks for Bane, 5 for Bridges, 5 for Gobert. But if Gobert is worth 5 and Bridges is worth 5 and Bane is worth 4, Bam's worth more than that.
Or Kevin Durant was worth 1. Like it's all kind of relative. So it's hard.
It's what they're worth to that team. Right?
Exactly. That's all that matters. It's not like going to the market and saying, hey, how much for this can of Campbell's soup?
Right.
It's 99 cents here. Well, it's 69 cents over at Publix or whatever. It doesn't work that way. You can't price comparison. It's whatever the negotiation. And negotiation oftentimes comes down to leverage. One side has it, one side doesn't. The Knicks wanted Mikal Bridges. The Nets knew that. Mikal Bridges wasn't like their centerpiece, but they knew, hey, those guys really want him. How much? 1, no. 2, no. 3, no. 4, no. 5, okay. And a couple of seconds. That's how that works. There was no one else. It wasn't a bidding war. It was just the Knicks were a dog with a bone on this, and they wanted what they wanted.
Saz, what do you do with Pat Riley having the delusion, I'm going to call it, of saying the only teams I feared were the Spurs and the Thunder, when everyone in the conference is better than you?
Yeah, like I obviously don't like that, but you're spot on when you say that it's double speak, because if you do feel that way, then why didn't you go all in and get that one big piece? Like, who cares about these assets and flexibility if you can get a guy like Durant and you think that there's no one in the Eastern Conference who you can't beat?
Well, that would have been a bad move, by the way.
Yeah.
Durant, I believe all of those things. I believe all of those things would have been short-sighted.
Were you just saying they should have done it?
No,
it was a bad thing.
No, he's saying it's double speak to say that you're all in for right now.
That's a little unfair. I don't think the Durant move would have been bad. I don't.
I think the Durant move would have been what it's been in Houston. Not enough.
Wow, top 4 team. That's great.
Not enough. Not enough. Not good enough. You got to be better than the best. You can't.
Yeah, well, we have Bam on a bio when we pair them.
So top 4 team's good enough now, but when Jimmy Butler's top 2 team, that's not good enough, right? That's failure amid success, as you said.
No, the failure is not making the move.
Is dead. But journalism, as we know it, as you know it, what you wanted to do when you were a little kid, okay? It has changed. It has. It's changed, okay? You're not wrong. Stephen A. Smith is not wrong. You have to adapt sometimes, okay? Because the game has changed. Your priorities have shifted. No one cares how someone goes and gets the news that they get, as long as the news is accurate, as long as it's coming from a credible place. If it's Woj, if it's Adam Schefter, if it's you, if it's Diana Rossini, if it's Shams, nobody cares. You might care. Greg Cody might care. Stephen A. Smith might care. But you know what? You all sold out. Every single one of you, okay? Stephen A. Smith jumped inside the circus tent. I don't blame him. Why'd he do it? Because he had to do it. Because the game has changed. You jumped inside the circus tent. You did. You did so with me. Think about that. With me and with Greg Cody every Tuesday, okay? And so you have ditched journalism a long, long time ago because why? Survival of the fittest, Dan. You have to change with the times. You have to roll with a changing environment, roll with a changing industry, and that's what you decided to do. That's what Stephen A. decided to do. And for Woj, for guys like him, the game has changed slightly, where he went out and he sought reports, and he wanted to be the reporter. And you know what? If now he has morphed into a mouthpiece for the Blazers, I'm okay with it. I am good with it. I don't care.
Survival of the fattest.
Everyone, exactly. Everyone is selling out to make a buck.
What a terrible timing.
It was great.
Like that joke.
Hey, just give it up. You all want to be journalists. You're not journalists anymore. None of you. Not a one of you. Sorry.
You didn't even hear the joke.
I did. Survival of the fattest. It was great.
It just could have been done after Stugotz stopped talking, Dan.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shoehorn that
But I'm
in.
okay. I'm okay
You're
with
splitting
it.
hairs.
Right.
Okay.
You adapt. You roll with things, man. That's it. You know, Dan, you started off, if you're a driver, you drove a yellow cab and you were loyal to the yellow cab. You know what? But the game has changed to Uber, to Lyft, to private driving. And you know what? You have to ditch the yellow cab and you have to drive an Uber. Why? Because you'll make more money. Why? Because more people are taking Uber than the dirty yellow cabs. That's why. That's what you do. No one cares about journalism. You know what they care about? Laughing, being entertained. And you do a great job of that. And Stephen A. Smith does a great job of that. No one cares about journalism. People care about smiling. That's it.
You know, this morning I found myself while I was driving Claire to school. I told her, you ask a lot of questions. You should be a journalist. And now here in this conversation, I just, don't be a journalist. Like,
exactly.
Do something else.
It's over.
Sad.
You're going to let Stugotz parent your daughter. You think that's a good idea?
You think journalism is a good occupation to choose now?
No, I would not. Listen, not only is it not a good occupation to choose, I have looked around Miami and realized we're the only ones providing the jobs we're presently providing. I heard local TV reporters are making $45,000 a year.
Huh.
I couldn't believe that's how bad local television is struggling, that's the place that has arrived. And I told Chris Cody not to get into this business at all because it's terrible.
But Stephen A. Smith is making more money than he's ever made in his entire life. He has more power. He has more of everything than he's ever had in his entire life. You want him to give that up because of journalism?
This episode of the Dan Le Batard Show is presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Tell me if you guys are in agreement with me on this. I thought that the biggest story of the weekend, although it wasn't treated that way, obviously, because we've got playoffs all over the place, Brendan Sorsby, Texas Tech's quarterback, who, this is a very good player who's paid $5 million a year and is considered one of the best college football players, most important that there will be next year, just enters rehab for a gambling addiction because he's making thousands of dollars or thousands of bets at a time. And we're going to bring in Pablo Torre here in a second.
Yeah, he just dropped. He'll be right back.
Terry Rozier's story. Damon Jones is the first of the accused in the NBA gambling ring, evidently, to plead guilty.
Got tortilla soup thrown in his face.
Yes, but that has nothing to do with this. The tortilla soup thrown in his face was a different incident that doesn't...
Throwing soup is funny.
Yes, we did a lot on the subject of a soup thrown at him. We wondered quite a bit which would be the most successful kind of soup to throw at somebody.
Broccoli and cheddar would be like dripping off your face. It'd be disgusting.
Baked potato.
I think
French
French onion soup would be pretty good because you just have that foamy sponge thing and some cheese and an assortment.
It tastes so good, though.
Yeah, it does taste good.
You throw a bread bowl at me, though, I'm catching that thing.
Let's talk to Pablo about this and other stories. Where did the Brendan Sorsby story land for you? Because these things are now happening quietly. What used to be, before gambling was legalized in the United States, among the largest scandals that you would have found anywhere, happens kind of quietly as we professionalize sports, and a $5 million quarterback is telling you, I need help with my gambling addiction. I can't stop gambling. What are your thoughts? What were your thoughts, Pablo, as you saw some of this coming your way?
Yeah, it's about time. We were due for one of these stories, and I say that not because I had inside information about this guy in particular. Frankly, I'd sort of remotely been aware of his existence, but this was startling only in the specific. In the general, it was like, yeah, this is what happens. And I say that statistically speaking because there is someone in college sports, given the incentive structure, even if you're making $5 million, is going to, and I'll say fall prey, because I think that's appropriate, fall prey to what the carrot at the end of the stick is suggesting he can do. And if all of your friends, if your network of people, if they're all holding these sticks with carrots at the end of it, in which, hey, I can make money too, just help me out, there's a little bit of this, that all makes sense. And then there's just the general notion of this is a consequence of the expanding menu of available bets, which was very small back in the pre-legalized gambling era, and now is Cheesecake Factory length. And so unsurprising in general, surprising in specific was my reaction.
Is this a byproduct of gambling being more readily available, or is it a byproduct of, so is the betting data? And leagues and conferences now have access to this because people are downloading apps and betting, and it's getting flagged. Whereas if you're just going to a bookie or doing this by proxy, not so much.
Yeah, I think the data around this, when Amin and I, we did an episode, to take it back to the NBA for a second, when we did an episode about the origin of the NBA gambling scandal, which you realized was that, this started in China when they were engineering a whole gambling network, allegedly, in which you bet on CBA games, Chinese Basketball Association games. Death taxes in Chinese basketball was the phrase. But the way it was enacted was they were placing the bets in America because you could bet on Chinese Basketball Association games legally. And so I say all of this to say that information is the currency here. And I think what's interesting about this story, about the data of it, is that this is a star quarterback. But the real insidious aspect of this is not the star quarterback. That is the best headline. The most insidious, hard to stamp out issue that the NBA is grappling with, as there are now new reports of, prosecutors now saying we are going to charge Terry Rozier with, a bribe, with basically being more involved than you realized around the gambling stuff. What you realize is that we're talking about an information network. And so many people can be aware of things that are not stars because they've been passed through locker rooms, staffs, all of the ways in which humans have been gossiping forever. And now that's monetizable. So again, the headline, yes, it's like, whoa, that's a star quarterback. But the problem is incredibly difficult to solve, Mike, even if you have now the ability to, of course, flag stuff based on the data, which, of course, every operator is also incentivized to do because they see how this can go horribly wrong.
Pablo, we've seen it touch the NBA. We've seen it now touch college football with a major star in the sport. Like, is this now just the future of basically every professional sport is going to have some sort of issue like this? Are we going to see bigger guys going into the future being taken down by stuff like this, or do you think this is a one-off?
Well, I think we're learning something. I think everybody's learning something about what they can get away with. And I mean that, again, I'll use the NBA example because it's provided the most clarity that I've personally dealt with. And what's so interesting is that these are not bets in the NBA case, as of course we look at the football player in front of us. The NBA case was not about entirely, we're going to throw games. It was, we're going to share pieces of information in which me as the player, I am not actually costing my team a win or a loss. In fact, I'm playing around, so to speak, with the edges of what is bettable, actionable information. And so in this case, look, we're getting still reports about what he was betting on and how, and we will see how much the outcome of games was directly in doubt. But because more than the outcome of a game is bettable, I think the first wave of players in the big high-level scandals that we've been seeing, it's very interesting to note that I can imagine that they have been able to rationalize this in their own brain. Jonte Porter, right? I'm just a guy who's on the bench who's going to take myself out of a game early. That's all I'm doing. Bet on the under. I'm going to ensure that. But it's not, in his mind, actually affecting the outcome of the game. I think that the notion of we're going to get a superstar quarterback outright throwing a game is unlikely, absent, frankly, some theory of mob allegation activity. I think in general, it's going to be just the ability to trust the action on the court that becomes hard to imagine because every piece of action on the court is now action at on a gambling service.
Pablo, if you had to have a type of soup thrown at you, what kind would you choose?
Borscht. It's cold.
That seems unpleasant.
Yeah.
I'd prefer something warm than something cold. I'd rather something warm, not piping hot, but something warm to cold. Cold is unpleasant.
Not a gazpacho guy.
No cold, none of the cold soups. I'm not cold. Soup needs to be warm. Hard stop. Just no variables. Soup needs to be warm. At Le Batard Show, put it on the poll. No dilutions. At Le Batard Show, does soup need to be warm? Hard stop. The point Pablo is making, though, is an important one. The reporting we've seen so far, when he was at Indiana, he was betting on Indiana to win. These things are more scandalous if we find that somebody was betting on these teams to lose and then contributing to the loss. That's not what's in play here. What is in play here, though, is a gambling problem that he doesn't have control over that makes him the first we've seen so far to raise his hand before a season and say, I'm going to go get help before this. I'm going to go make a Heisman run, and this is on my resume. That I'm going to get help for this before I finish school. That's not something we've seen before.
No. And look, my two thoughts there are, yes, it is some kind of courage to be able to say publicly, I have a problem. I will commit to seeking help for it. This is something that I cannot control. And on that level, he is somebody that a lot of people in America, men particularly statistically, can relate to and should relate to. The other part is that's how bad it got, that the only solve for a PR crisis was I must admit to doing this. And without hearing from him, I'm not here to gauge the sincerity of, look, we're living in an era in which counseling has become a PR instrument, right? Look at the Vrabel Rossini stuff. Look at all of this. So I am cynical by default, but this is when you call it, I'm struggling to articulate this because an addiction, a gambling addiction, I do think it's worthy of consideration as a disease, as potentially an epidemic, and it should be treated rigorously. And if this is the first person to be the poster child of it as a player is concerned, I just have to imagine statistically he's not alone, and I hope other people realize this and they seek help for it too, because it is a medical condition as the human brain is scientifically concerned.
I think chicken noodle is clearly the soup that you'd want thrown at you the most. The broth is not going to stain your clothes that bad. Like chili, I'm wearing that the rest of the day.
You think chili soup?
Chili's not a soup. I'm not.
It's like
please, guys.
Chili's chili.
Chili is not a soup.
No, where is it on the menu? Oh, in the soup section. You guys sound dumb.
You guys sound
crazy.
You guys sound like
no,
dumb.
you do. You sound uneducated.
I'm going to trust Chris on this one.
I mean, like, where is it on the
Chili's
menu?
Mostly solid.
I'll let the menu tell me what chili is.
It's got to have a broth. It's got to have a broth.
You've never had good chili.
Chili, put it on the poll at Le Batard
Chili
Show.
drips.
Is chili a soup? Pablo, to the point that you're making, though, it's not just skepticism. The timing of the admission was not vulnerable. It's because things were closing in on him, correct? Like, that's not, it's not just because he's throwing up his hand, volunteering out of nowhere, hey, I was making thousands of bets.
You knew when the statement came out, oh boy, what else is coming out here? And it took 5 minutes for us to find out that when he was at Indiana, that detail. And by the way, this is all we know. I don't have access to the data. All we have access to is what's been reported.
Yeah, and look, the NCAA is investigating, and it's interesting to consider the NCAA because the NCAA broadly has been functionally useless for most issues, right? The NCAA used to be the sheriff in town for lots of things that are now either legal or de facto legal when it comes to paying players. Now, the NCAA is a hammer in search of a nail, and so it is interesting to think that the NCAA might now focus on the gambling issue as it's sort of animating spirit. Like, what are we here to do? We're here to do that. But at the same time, look, I suppose what I am trying to incentivize here is more honesty from the people involved, including the player in question. And if the NCAA made it inevitable that he was going to have to fess up to this, perhaps that is also more realistic than my desire for, someone was forthright, absent a legal threat of some kind.
What updates do you have for us? Damon Jones has now pled guilty, reportedly, first of the people involved in the story that you've been very close to involving the NBA gambling scandal. What update do you have for us there and on what is happening with Terry Rozier?
Yeah, so here in New York, not too far from our studio, Terry Rozier, there was a hearing. There was a dismissal hearing in the NBA gambling case, which we've exhaustively chronicled here, and is, of course, relevant to where you guys are in Miami, because the U.S. attorney now says that the government intends to file a superseding indictment, adding new charges, including that Terry Rozier allegedly, quote, solicited and accepted a bribe. And so, look, part of the nightmare for the NBA when it comes to any investigation, and it involves the NBA gambling stuff, and of course it involves the Clippers stuff, and involves all the things that I'm interested in, and that Amin gets involved in with us. What the NBA fears is what the government, which has subpoena power, which has, under this administration, by the way, this is not an inconsequential concern. The government, the DOJ under this administration, it's hard to predict what they will care about, but they care about different things than previous administrations. And so, again, as always, two things can be true. One is there might be a ton here that is unknown with Terry Rozier and the NBA gambling scandal, which is now spread, of course, to Pennsylvania as well as New York. And so there's a lot going on. The other one is, go back to that presser, Dan, where Kash Patel was front and center, announcing the charges. This is also something that they can make political hay out of. And if you're the NBA, your eyes are also getting googly. The NBA is wondering, wide-eyed, what are they going to do that can make our business, frankly, messier and more legally dicey than we would like. The Rozier thing, what you guys went through in Miami with that, I think was almost traumatic for the NBA and its investigators at Wachtell Lipton to deal with, because they did not know what Kash Patel was going to do. By the way, and in fairness to the DOJ in general, what the DOJ under the previous administration had started. It did not start with Kash Patel, but his desire, the current administration's desire to make something even more out of it, is where they're also, I think in the NBA's case, the NBA is also watching its own back. And so what happens from here? It's just very interesting that new charges were just announced yesterday, and Damon Jones is showing up today.
Pablo, I saw clips of your most recent episode, and my question to you is, are we at a point of no return where we just all acknowledge if you're a television insider covering a sport, the rules are different. You should be considered different because this isn't Big J rules anymore. The reaction to your report of Rossini having a rival pool party right across from Jay Glazer's was interesting because everyone kind of went to the news that Diana Rossini had a rival pool party, and everyone just glances past Jay Glazer having 28 head coaches, kind of doing the same thing in that moment.
Yeah, and I bring that up not because I think that what Diana had done allegedly in totality is exactly the same as what Glazer had done in totality, or Schefter or Woj, but anybody who has worked in our business knows that an insider, let's talk about it from the perspective of the audience first. What the audience wants is access. They like it when their insiders are super plugged in, when they are getting texts and calls during television hits, and they got to step off stage because it's like, it's like when the president has to have, he's reading to children and someone comes over and whispers into his ear, oh my God, what are they going to say next, right? What's the news that's breaking? So they like that. And I think that for a lot of the history of insiders, that has been the main standard, is like, oh, they're getting information that we don't have, and they're doing it because they are so plugged in. What the audience does not like to know, though, is how the sausage is made. And the sausage in this case, when it comes to Glazer, like, what I respect him for in this regard is that he does not make claims to be a journalist. He is saying, very out front and transparently, I am an MMA trainer. I train players. I am a friend to all of these coaches. 28 of them came to my pool party, which was started by Mike Tomlin 18 years ago. And he is saying, here we are day drinking. Sean McVay, he posted this, picked up the tab. And all of that from a pure, just like, are you uncompromised perspective? Of course there is the personal relationships being compromising the impartiality. Now, if you're a J of some size journalist, none of that's allowed, but I also think that the audience doesn't give a shit. And that's the trouble with it, you know? Like, I find myself being so fascinated by what the audience cares about in terms of how did you get your information? Did you want it organic, free range? Do you care that it got processed through this filter of my own personal, transactional favor trading? And it's not just Glazer, it's every insider. And so the job of insider, I think, is unsustainably synonymous with journalism. I don't think those two things can be the same thing. I just think the incentive structure is so tilted towards, of course, this is about personal relationships and favors. And that's just the history of the job. And we should just be clear about that.
Pablo, I don't think the audience cares. That's what I've learned in the 10 years or so I've been doing media. I thought people used to care. They don't care. They just want the hot goss, however it gets to them.
Well, Amin, that's why I'm asking, is this a point of no return where the onus falls on us? Like, let's stop trying to have these insiders adhere to a level that hasn't actually been the case for several years. Like, we just have to acknowledge insiders are different.
I don't know if you want to open those floodgates, though.
I mean, here's the thing, though. I think the floodgates have long been opened, and now we're just recognizing and pointing to them and saying, actually, there's been water running through this deeply porous, if not non-existent, wall. I mean, you know this. Like, there are insiders. I mean, think about how powerful Adrian Wojnarowski was at ESPN. When I say that he was somebody who was not merely a clearinghouse of information, but someone who was directing valuable information to teams according to his own discretion that enabled transactions. The sausage is being made not only of information, but of actual trades. Like, this is not, and so do people care? You know, I think it's interesting. People should know that, but do they care? I guess not.
Yeah, because I mean, Adrian is the reason why I feel like people don't care, because as we were explaining his propensity not only to bogart other reporters' reports in-house, but also to manipulate, right, news in order to assist people who were benefiting him with information. I would explain these things, and people were like, Woj bomb. I'm like, oh, so you guys just don't care. You just care that you found out 5 seconds before that Ty Simpson is going to the Rams. That's all they care about. They don't care about anything else or how it's happening, or forget about how it's happening because of the relationship. To me, the bigger thing is the manipulation of how news is described. It's no different than why people come to this country and, without having ever lived in America, be like, black people are responsible for most of the crime. Well, why is that? Well, because the news that they turn on at 6 o'clock, once upon a time when people watch 6 o'clock news, was conveying the message in that way, was portraying, and this is all because of news floor organizations in the 70s and 80s that went to every local station across America and said, hey, this is how you do the news. That's why we always like, and coming up, a puppy that refuses to bark, like the way local news is constructed is not identical across the land by accident. It was something deliberate by organizations called news floor organizations. So I say all that to say, like, people don't seem to actually care, I think, even though what they're getting isn't merely just biased or merely just one-sided, but is also many times deliberately delivered in a way to shine a particular light.
Yeah, and look, all I think here's why I think fans and consumers should be interested and should care, because they should demand some level of transparency and disclosure from the people delivering them the food they're eating, from the information that they are consuming. And if you have a relationship, if you have a bias, just disclose it. Like, that's the rule, right? So I don't mean to take us back to a time in which, there are rules where sports writers couldn't root for their favorite team when they were just like in their own private life. Like you couldn't like wear the cap of your favorite team. You couldn't cheer, right? Like you were meant to be this sort of like omniscient, impartial voice of God from nowhere in which you were just objectively observing everything. I don't think that is realistic, and it never has been realistic.
It was before
And
Wilbon tucked his Cubs jersey into his jeans.
That was the day.
That was the day it all died. That was
Yeah.
when he went out there and threw out the first pitch and was wearing a Cubs jersey and he tucked it into his jeans. The illusion was shattered.
Yeah, and then Dan hit the drum.
Yeah,
before
we made a whole
Years
song
later.
about it.
Years
no,
later.
No, that's etched in stone.
No,
with the
yeah,
song.
it was an etched in stone. It was etched in whatever it is Wilbon did.
You
years
should have
earlier.
tucked your jersey into your jeans. That would have been great, dude.
That would have been a great callback.
idea, 7 months
Pablo,
too late.
Amin mentioned Woj and market manipulation and perhaps being a shadowy hand behind some of these deals. Let's have an uncomfortable conversation. A.J. Brown is supposed to go to the New England Patriots here. We had Diana Rossini on the show several times, and I would say she was at the forefront of reporting on A.J. Brown, and that market did kind of take a dip. Now, we don't know what he went for, but it is curious. She reported a lot on A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown is reportedly on his way to the New England Patriots. The NFL has said this doesn't fall in line with their personal conduct policy. But should the NFL look into this?
I think the NFL should look into it, but I also think that this is really interesting. And my governor for whether you should look into something is it interesting? The NFL's governor on should we look into this is this a business problem for us that we need to attend to? And for them, it is absolutely not. You know, so there's just the practical reality of that. But let's talk about the A.J. Brown thing, because look, when I say, and I try to be clear about like how I do whatever it is that I've become known for, which is like reporting and investigative journalism into subjects that can be messy and soap opera-y sometimes. As well as serious
Muckraking.
things. Well, the muck here is very there is a chilly sort of level of mess that we're dealing with.
Is it a
So when I
soup?
say I'm making calls, I think chili, if you put it through a strainer, is mostly solid objects, which means it's probably not a soup.
There's some drippage.
Closer
but-
to a stew.
Yeah, it's
Matzo ball
mostly
soup is
meat.
a soup.
Not a soup.
Matzo ball soup.
Chili's not a soup.
Yeah, because careful.
I've been
Careful how
trying to
you
make
talk
calls.
about matzo ball soup.
I've been trying matzo. Okay, that's mostly carbs. Put matzo ball soup through a strainer, you're getting a giant ball of carbs.
That's the one that I would want
I'm
thrown
just
at
saying,
me,
it's-
but then I would worry it was a hate crime.
I swear I didn't know. I thought he was Cuban.
I want to play some sound.
Wait, we didn't get
here.
an answer.
I'm
Oh,
tired.
I
I'm tired of this subject.
I know Dan's already
What?
bored.
What
He's
did
bored of
Diana
me saying I'm making calls
Rossini
and that
manipulate a
equals-
market for A.J.
Look,
Brown?
I'll say this. What I've been told in the calls that I've been making are that certainly there are people around the Philadelphia Eagles organization who think that what Diana was reporting has made their lives harder because they've had to deal with A.J. Brown and this storyline. The follow-up question, though, is how much of a thumb does that reporting put on the scale, right? Is that actually forcing a transaction? In my view, no. It needs to be something that erupts from the reality of dealing with A.J. Brown, the person. However, is it annoying when there are all of these reports and now all of this chatter and speculation around A.J. Brown wanting out that are louder because of Diana's reporting than otherwise it would have been also true? And so if you're thinking to yourself, is this person serving some other agenda that is meant to undermine us? And is that agenda owned by the team that wants A.J. Brown? That's how we get to that level of mess. But I just keep on reiterating, this is not unique. The idea that there is a report that makes it easier for one team to get what they want and harder for another is so much of the sausage making. It's all transactions enabling transaction reporting, enabling perhaps transactions. There is favor trading at it's favors all the way down in the insider game. And that's when I say, no, she's not unique. Yes, this is exceptionally messy, chilly level messy, but it's simply not a pioneering example of was there a favor being traded. That we've seen or not had disclosed, but seen for decades.
All right, let's not make it information insiders, though. Let's make it Stephen A. Let's make the people talking about Stephen A. Steve Stout and Rich Kleinman. Rich Kleinman is the business manager for Kevin Durant and others. He has his own podcast. Steve Stout is a record executive. Here is Steve Stout talking about Stephen A.
Fame and talent had a great relationship. Fame is the amplifier of talent. Fame has decided it doesn't need talent anymore. Fame has actually outpaced talent, and the worst part of that is that talent has accepted that truth. So people who are talented will actually do something that will get them famous versus leaning into that talent. If you decide, I'm gonna have a hot take that's ridiculous as just because I know it's gonna get clicks, what are you doing to your brand? What do you think that does to you?
So when you say talent's accepted it, is it that they'll either compromise their brand or just accept that what their talent is?
Both. I have a great deal of respect for Stephen A. Smith. I think Stephen A. Smith has done so much that is about fame than the fact that he's actually a great journalist. He's clearly cashing out. But his journalism, the thing that he's great at, I believe, is homogenized by the that he's doing for fame.
Pablo?
What's the game? What's the game we're playing? I mean, my worldview is shaped by a fundamental understanding of incentives. Once upon a time, the standard of success was not metrically as baldly obvious as it is now, in which fame is synonymous with, is this going viral? Am I getting more attention? And Stephen A., look, again, he is not the first, but he might be the most effective at recognizing that incentive structure. Look, my view of Stephen A.'s evolution professionally has been through the lens of somebody who's also launching his own YouTube channel and is trying to compete in the same space. And I'm seeing a world in which Stephen A. is leaning more into the stuff that got attention, that got more clicks, because that's the incentive. And so whatever your talent is, I was going to say that felt like Chris might have been eating what is arguably not a soup earlier today.
Breakfast burritos.
Yeah, there it is.
Dear God.
Damn.
Got to check into the chat.
I was merely making the point that the noises that Stephen A. makes, he's been the best at making them, and that the talent, as defined as talent, would be, are you winning the game? And so, look, when I see him on his YouTube channel, he's interviewing he's interviewing Candace Owens. Why is he doing that? It's because people are clicking. He's talking about running for president. Why is he doing that? Because people are validating the effort for a time. Now that seems to be dissipated, but nonetheless, he was following the incentives. And when it comes to the whole thing of, man, Stephen A. used to be X and now he's Y, the through line in everything we've talked about, from the gambling scandals to the insider sausage making to this, is, what are people being incentivized to do? That's what I think, unfortunately, talent is synonymous with, is, are you winning? And if you want to argue, as Steve Stout seems to be, that talent is something different and more ineffable that should be valued as a virtue, let's have that conversation. But the reason we're seeing it happen this way is because someone incentivized it.
But I do think that people think of talent as noble and fame as not. Like, we have gotten there. And I'm remiss in not mentioning before now that over the weekend at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, there was a fairly seismic event. And I wanted to talk to you about this portion of it. There have been some, I dare say many in MAGA, which has been a conspiracy-fueled movement, who thought and have articulated that the original assassination attempt on Trump many months ago on the run-up to election, that it was staged. And while I wouldn't put it past this administration to think like that, even if it involves the death of a person in it, I do question this administration's ability to successfully execute it competently in a way that would keep us fooled for a while. But Donald Trump never mentions it. His ear is now fine. And then this weekend, we have yet another incident. And the immediate reaction, Pablo, online, disoriented me because we're already in the post-truth age of nobody believes anything they see. And so something happens, and the instant that it happens, instead of believing threat, danger, America at large just keeps eating its salad like that guy who never moved, and we just go on to questioning whether or not what we just saw happen actually happened. So what was your take from the weekend's events?
So I was watching this at home. I was in D.C. for some of the events earlier that weekend, was not going to attend the dinner, left earlier that day, but was very interested in watching the dinner remotely because I was just curious. Trump was going to be there for the first time. How is it going to be handled? All of that stuff I was interested in. The thing that stuck out to me immediately, though, was how this shooting happens, this event in which someone intrudes, and you guys know the story, does something that would have been uniquely catastrophic once upon a time, was so non-unique that the word immediately after, according to the president's own desires, was, we're going to head back out there and continue the dinner. And maybe that was a callback, a parallel to the whole like fight thing at Butler at that rally in Pennsylvania that you referred to, Dan, with the ear and the blood and all that stuff. Trump standing up saying, no, I need to be here behind the podium showing strength. Maybe that's what his instinct was when he was communicating via all these proxies. I want to go back out there. We're resuming the dinner. And in fact, the White House Correspondents Association had indicated initially there was reporting that, yes, this event will resume. And when those first waves of reports were released, that's what I found the most jarring. It was like, I'm not so numb to the idea that there was a shooting, there was a suspect apprehended, and he's lying out there shirtless with various federal agents surrounding him, and we're going to go back and continue to eat the meal. That part, I'm like, no, I just thought that said so much about, what smelled around that event.
How much about the reaction to this? Because immediately this is met with skepticism when in previous years that wouldn't be the case. Everybody would be afraid. It was almost instantaneous. Once people found out that no one was injured, no one was killed, everybody went to, well, this is awfully convenient. Your poll numbers are low. How much of this is this whole post-truth thing where every day is a circus? The president on his own channels spreads misinformation, denies universal truths. Every day there is truth that is shot down by this administration, that since we're meeting every day with this kind of skepticism, naturally things like this, though tragic, are also met with that.
Yeah, and this actually continues the incentive conversation, because the incentives, like what was there to be gained by President Trump and the administration because this event happened? Quite a bit, right? Purely based on the incentives. Because everyone's safe, you can now say, well, this changed the conversation from the war in Iran, from the fact that he had just truth socialed a declaration of a civilization's demise. It pivoted away from any number of other scandals involving the Epstein files and everything else that you can point to. And his poll numbers are, of course, reflective of those scandals. So
pivoted
was there an
to a ballroom,
incentive? Did
Pablo.
he benefit?
It pivoted to a ballroom,
Well,
which is
okay.
something that he's been driving.
And so now you follow the incentives there. Like, oh, he wanted the ballroom. There was now reporting around how the ballroom was a horrific deal that wasn't getting legislative approval through the formal channels. And now this thing becomes a pretense to justify legislatively and otherwise the ballroom. So you follow the incentives and you're like, I see why this was good for President Trump. But the second level, and this is where, again, people get bored immediately. The second level is you actually got to report it out. It's not enough to say this was a benefit, therefore it happened. It's now, how do we prove, so that we can safely say this, that this is what really happened? And I think that a lot of the conspiratorial conversation, which admittedly I have been fascinated by, a lot of it stops at the incentives. And so the missing piece is always, so the question of like, why aren't you saying more of this out loud is a question I get a lot about on Twitter when it comes to the Rossini stuff, when it comes to this even. It's like, you're the investigative guy. Why aren't you saying things as full-throatedly on certain subjects as much as other people just online are, the commenters, right? About like, hey, was this kid named after Mike Vrabel? Was Butler, Pennsylvania an op? It's like there's a difference between recognizing incentives as your first lens to see who stands to benefit from here. The other secondary, even more important lens, though, of fact-checking is why I don't come out here and speculate wildly about this, unless, of course, I'm on your show and Chris Cody is farting in the background.
We can all agree, clam chowder is the absolute worst, right?
It seems like it'd be pretty bad. Let's just leave this with Pablo just to haunt him a little bit. He's the best podcaster among all the podcasters winning awards, but this is how he communicates.
This is when you come up, I'm struggling.
Coming up today on the Alley Oop, the Timberwolves are up 3-1, but are they cooked at the same time? Also, the Cavs and the Raptors are locked in a gridiron gridlock series, and we do not talk about it one bit.
But we do talk a lot about the San Antonio Spurs, Juju, and how the Blazers have now given up almost 2 20-point leads in back-to-back home games. FML. And I have a new hot take about celebrity dating culture, so lock the in.
Absolute about this. First of all, he does. He
Right.
does reporting, does journalism. He is very credible. When he gives information, it's not like Skip Bayless giving information. There is a difference. Skip Bayless also allegedly a journalist, but he's been contaminated by this thing and distorted by it in ways that are even more poisonous because he doesn't do any reporting anymore. Like, he doesn't talk to people in a way that's informed. Stephen A actually goes to things, has relationships, and certainly when he's talking about basketball, if Stephen A gives you information that's not opinion, you trust that it's informed.
No doubt. But every time he does that show, Dan, every single episode, his journalistic integrity, it shreds away. Little by little, piece by piece, it just does. He is doing a debate show debating the most ridiculous topics in the history of sports. Like, it has to affect your credibility.
Stugotz, it has happened.
And you sitting next to me does not help. I mean,
or my dad or Cody, because I said to myself, generations of Codys, because I did say to myself, this is one of the things I find funny about Stephen A. and thinking that he and I do the same thing, because once I got to PTI and it was argument television, I said I'd like to try to do it differently, but I guess that sounds highfalutin. I don't want to do debate shows.
The knuckleball is dead.
The knuckleballer is dead now, correct? Completely dead. There's no one. Is there anyone throwing the knuckleball now?
Someone has to be throwing it.
I would say Tim Wakefield was pretty
None of us
bad.
have one. We're just like, yeah.
No, there has to be.
There's got to be. Well, wait a minute. The knuckleballer didn't go extinct without anyone telling us.
As long as there's breath in my lungs, there's a knuckleballer out there.
Put it on the poll, Guillermo, at Le Batard Show. As long as there is breath in your lungs, will there be a knuckleballer out there?
There should be more, because if you notice, I mean, I don't have any stats to back this, but I don't care. I'm going with it regardless. I would say that the position players that are pitching have a much better ERA than average pitchers do, because they're all just going out there throwing the ball like 35 miles an hour, and the hitters are so confused that they just get under it, they pop up. Like, nary a run is scored off of a position player sometimes, but not always.
I loved when baseball analysis was starting strong. I loved the people who would do the analytics on how a knuckleballer would screw up your hitters the next day. For the preparing for a knuckleball would screw you up the next day as well, because you're sitting out there hitting those 45-mile-an-hour butterflies.
There's nothing that I hated more, like growing up watching the Marlins, than when Jamie Moyer was coming to play against them. And I don't even remember if he was a knuckleballer or if he could just only
it
hit
was just
75.
slop. It was just slop.
He could
It wasn't
only hit
he
like
was not a knuckleballer.
72.
He was just old, and he threw croutons up
Anytime
there.
there's a
Tossed salad.
knuckleballer or just an old man that could throw the ball really slow, I knew like this team can only hit fastballs, and this is going to be a long day and a long week because they're not going to be able to figure it out.
And it's frustrating because you're just seeing these meatballs go over the plate. You're like, how can you not deal with this? This is so slow. Hit the baseball. And yet Jamie Moyer had a 20-year career. 40. He was still pitching.
What is the ruling of the committee? Is Stugotz is nominated? I need some sort of formal ruling from the committee. He has nominated Joe Musgrove. Billy is passionately against. Chris, are you willing to give him horse status because horse status is before ace? Horse is not an ace.
Chris, before you answer, I have good news on the knuckleballer front. There is still one remaining. Mickey Janis of the Orioles is still throwing it. Okay?
See? The worst team in the league.
He's still out there, though, keeping the species alive.
It also
will not
seems
go
though
extinct.
Mickey Janis has only pitched one game in 2021.
Oh.
In Major League Baseball.
He's still trying.
Still breath in my lungs.
Yeah.
He is currently with the Chicago Dogs of the American Association of Professional Baseball, which I don't think is in Major League Baseball. So
it is extinct.
So it is extinct for now, yeah.
But extinct in the majors doesn't make it extinct as a species.
Yeah, exactly.
This may surprise you, Dan, but there are only 33 pitchers who have ever thrown a knuckleball in a major league game, according to
wrong.
Wikipedia.
That's
which I was surprised how small that number was.
I don't think that's wrong, Billy. Why would you think that's wrong?
That's wrong. Let's all name knuckleballers we can think of and see if
Well,
they're
no,
on
we'd never come up with 33 of them. 33 sounds about right to me. It's a terrifying way to make a living. Imagine all these guys. They're just failed pitchers who developed some other.
Whoa.
Failed pitcher.
Someone with like a 15, 20-year career is a failed pitcher?
Yeah.
Well, Jimmy Moyer is not a knuckleballer. You made him a knuckleballer just because he throws
Tim
soft.
Wakefield pitched, across decades.
There are a couple of guys who are exceptions, but largely the knuckleballer is a novelty freak who comes out, and it is hard to make a living that way.
Jeez.
Freak, what are you
doing?
doing?
I don't like how you're describing these things.
Right. Is it Phil Niekro in the Hall of Fame? I mean,
is he? I don't think so.
You don't think so?
He is in the Hall of Fame.
319 wins.
There are
Talladega Twins in the house. It was Talladega weekend. Let's cover it in Gearhead. Gearhead is presented by Cuervo. For every lap, keep it fun, keep it Cuervo. And Tony and I most certainly did. Dan, it was a chaotic Talladega race. The big one happened. 24 cars caught up in the big wreck. We're talking Bubba Wallace. We're talking Joey Logano. We're talking Kyle Larson. Dan Chase Briscoe hit a guy. It was absolute chaos, but a fan favorite won his first Cup Series race. We have a packaged video to recap the weekend. Thank you, Cuervo.
My man, 10-Day Tony. Boots on the ground here.
Baby. I'm in
World
Dega.
famous Talladega
Look at
Boulevard.
this.
Initial impressions?
Incredible. The track is huge. The boulevard is like the size of Vermont.
You're going to get a real-life lesson here in having a great time. It's one of my favorite things to do in sports. Thank you again to our friends at Cuervo. Cuervo, I want you to keep it Cuervo, folks,
Always.
for every lap. Keep it fun, keep it Cuervo. We are going to go ahead and take that advice starting right now.
Let's go, baby.
Let me give you the tour inside. Come on in.
This is my first time in an RV ever.
Good news is you're in the main bedroom. Bad news is so am I. Shower's great, and over here the bunk mates. But let me introduce you to the crew.
I'm excited.
All right.
I've only heard about these guys. I've never seen them. I've never met them in person.
They're pumping. They're waiting. We have College Mike. You know him a little bit. Man, myth,
Mike.
legend.
What's up,
College
buddy?
Mike. Over here we got NASCAR Nate.
bro.
NASCAR
I
Nate.
love
Over
that.
there we
Jeff
got
Gordon.
Eagle Eye.
Eagle Eye.
over there, and over there the Watermelon Man.
Where's the watermelon?
They're just warming up, getting the tires nice and warm. And before long, we're going to be seeing some cars turning left.
How high is like the slant or the angle on the turn?
Over here at Talladega, like you see at the very tippy top, you're looking at like an 80 degree
Yeah,
angle.
it's like a big drop or slant. Still trying to get my NASCAR terms right.
Yeah! That's what we do. We're about to sample some Cuervo right now. You excited?
I hope I get some Devil's Reserve, a little spice in there.
I want to know what makes it the world's fastest margarita.
You know what?
We're going to find out. Come with us. Let's go. First up, pink lemonade.
Pink lemonade. When do you have that?
Oh, that's good. That is delicious. Strawberry marg. You know the key ingredient in any margarita? You got to start it with the base layer of Cuervo. All right, let's see what this world's fastest margarita is all about. Thank you so much. All right, I'll tell you in a second. Here we go. Wow, that margarita is fast. And the whole of the brave. Start your engines. It's for the watermelon man!
On a start and stop like this, how do you get back into your...
They put them in the grid like the positions that they were in the race.
Gotcha, okay.
The watermelon man just slamming watermelons. We got the grill going.
Nice.
We got the Cuervo on ice. I was gonna say it doesn't get much better than this, but Tony, it's gonna get a lot better than this.
I'm excited because like even just seeing this stuff, when I was talking about like the speed and stuff, it's like you're telling me this is single A to like major leagues coming up Sunday.
Yeah. And our vibe right now, immaculate, still a single A vibe. We're gonna kick it up to the show real quick. All right, Tony, we're about halfway through our adventure. Cuervo's been with us the entire time. The sun has gone down. The party has turned up.
This is Talladega mayhem.
It's mayhem.
It's like a tailgate meets a music festival meets Key West meets, I don't know, like college camp. Like it's insane.
They call it the Coachella of the South. Whole parts of the world that we haven't seen.
There's literally a school bus to our left.
We're having a great time. Thanks a lot to Cuervo for bringing Tony along. Let's see some more.
Let's go.
We are inching closer to the green flag here at Talladega. Tony, you see the iconic This is Talladega grandstand behind you.
You can see the grandstands like from one stretch as far as the eye can see the other way. We got the cars literally right there. We're on pit row. I'm a NASCAR guy now.
You're a NASCAR guy?
I'm a NASCAR guy, dude.
Left turns, baby.
That's it.
World's fastest margarita. And as you can see, fans are lining up to try to beat it. Tony and I, we're going to try our luck here, Tony.
Are we racing against each other or are we racing against them?
Yes. 3, 2, 1. Mine's done.
We got a winner here.
If you ain't first, you're last. Exactly right, Ricky Bobby. Thank you. Thank you to Cuervo for opening my boys' eyes to this wonderful world of NASCAR. Certainly a weekend we will never forget. We're getting ready for the race. We're going to enjoy it, and we'll check back with you once it's all said and done.
Yes, sir.
Now, the only thing left is the racing.
Yeah.
Tony's first ever Talladega weekend has come to an end. Carson Hocevar, his first ever Cup Series win, an exciting race, lots of chaos, as Talladega often does, Tony.
What I thought coming into what today was, what this weekend was going to be, and what the experience that I had was completely different. Like the wreck that called 24 cars, they were gone. All of a sudden there was another spin out. Hocevar goes from being a guy who was in the middle of the pack to leading after that. Like it was an incredible week, an incredible weekend. The party was awesome. The race was even better.
Well, speaking of party, Carson Hocevar, we've seen him out on the boulevard before. I'm sure there's going to be a great party tonight in Talladega Boulevard. A polarizing young man, but an exciting driver. Congratulations to Carson Hocevar for his first
Congrats
win.
to me
Congrats
for being
to you
here
for your
great
first race.
Yeah, dude.
And I can guarantee you, Tony kept it fun, kept it Cuervo the whole time.
NASCAR guy now.
Big
I'm
left
excited
turns.
for the next one.
Loves the left turns. Thank you, Cuervo.
How was the RV, Tony? Did you enjoy the crowded RV?
It wasn't crowded. It was very nicely spaced out. I had never been inside an RV before.
Really?
Yeah.
At all, period?
Ever. Yeah. My dad's not an RV guy. So like where would I have been in an RV from? So it was cool. We had couches, we had chairs, we would watch the race. We threw on some of the NHL playoffs, NBA playoffs. We were watching golf, like everything split screen. We had food, we had drinks. It was an amazing time.
You had the watermelon man. The watermelon man. He was there. Carson Hocevar winning was amazing because this is a guy
that if you were to bet on one driver to start the big one, you'd bet Carson Hocevar. But also, if you could hand pick a guy to win that race, it was Carson Hocevar. He's very young. He's 6'4". He wears a cowboy hat. He's an electric personality. All that was missing for the young man was him being aggressive at a super speedway and winning his first Cup Series race. And he did so and pulled off an iconic celebration that's being compared to Dale, which is something he's often compared to because he's very aggressive. Check out this celebration, Dan.
Hanging out of the car.
He removed the wheel, then put it back on. Uses
Wait, no one's driving that?
No, he's driving, but he's 6'4".
It's a Waymo.
So he's got his foot on the pedal while he's driving. He does crash into the wall. Thank God he's all right. At one point, he tried to catch a beer that was flung onto the track, just narrowly missed it. But Carson Hocevar, with an iconic celebration, NASCAR came out and said, don't worry, this is fun. We want to see more of it. Won't be banned. Won't be fined. More of this. Thank you, Carson Hocevar.
You know who the MVP of the weekend was, though? Not only the Watermelon Man. Can you tell me about the 70-year-old guy? So in one of the lower tier races that they have on Saturday, there was like, what's it called? Arca
racing.
Okay,
There's
Arca
undercards?
Racing. Yeah,
there were 3 races that whole weekend. There was a dude on the Arca series that's, in his 70s, and my man was just putt-putting along. He's not going to ride that
They lapped
bank.
him like 3 times. But he was just cruising down.
He's not going to take a quiz.
They mentioned Waymo, and I don't know if you saw this, Zaz, but a Miami police officer pulled over a Waymo this weekend and ended up in a situation where he's arguing with a conferenced-in human being who's not driving the car.
Driver wouldn't step out of the car.
The passenger's not getting out of the car, and the future has arrived where Miami police are now trying to arrest and hassle drivers who aren't there because we have driverless cars.
I have 2 questions which you may not have the answer to. Number 1, did he know it was driverless? And number 2, why did he pull it over?
He did not know it initially was driverless, and it just kept stopping in odd places. It was driving erratically.
I'm sorry. There's no way he didn't know it was driverless. It's a Waymo. It's got all these gadgets.
Wait, not everyone knows what a Waymo looks like. Not everyone knows that that's a driverless car. Maybe they should, but not everyone does.
I mean, when I was in the Waymo a couple months ago, people were really confused looking at it.
So he looks, all right, hits the lights. It stops. He walks up, big and bad, looks in, is like,
yeah, there's no one in the driver's seat. Uh-huh.
Did you jump out? Did you jump into the back? He's like, no, I'm just driving. I'm going to South Beach.
We got a suspect on the run between 4'9" and 6'10", black.
The thing I wanted to ask you guys, and I don't know how you go about fixing what I'm about to say. Okay, there's a general negativity sometimes that seeps into sports coverage that I think people have gotten so used to that they don't even notice. So the big stories of the basketball playoffs so far are what's the matter with Jokic? What's the matter with the Pistons? How could the Knicks drop a game to Atlanta?
Durant.
Did you see, Durant. Did you see Boston lose that one game to Philadelphia? It's negative, 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 negative. Meanwhile, quietly, OKC annihilates everything. How does that happen quietly? And how is that uninteresting compared to all the other talking storylines? Because the excellence is, if not being diminished, it's largely being ignored. That team has no competitors for a year and a half. Now, San Antonio played some regular season games that were a little bit confusing against them, but for a year and a half, that is a cement mixer that's just rolling through basketball, and it's doing so in a way that is largely uninteresting to people, even though it's hugely dominant. And
I think it's unaesthetically pleasing at this point. Like, people are upset. Like, there's so much complaining when it comes to watching their games. A lot of people watch it. They don't like all the fouls. They certainly don't like Shai Gilgeous. Lou Dort has this reputation now that he's a dirty player. I think people are not interested in watching them right now.
I think you're incorrect about the why. The reason why people don't want to watch them is because they are too dominant. They are just, there's nothing wrong with them. There's no weakness. They are inevitable, kind of like Thanos, where he's like, yo, you could do this a million times over. It's going to end up the same way. I was at Game 3 on Saturday, And, some of the Phoenix local guys were asking, like, what do you think the Suns need to do? And I said, there's nothing to do. There's nothing that you can do because they do everything so perfectly, so right, even if you're within range. And that's what happened in that game. The Suns would get in range, like, okay, here come the Suns. And the Thunder just go pop, pop, pop. And all of a sudden it's like a 15-point lead.
But it's only
again.
like that this round for them. Like, this is the third straight year that they swept an opponent. Like, they're not going to have their way the rest of the
Well, but
postseason.
they win by unusual margins, though. As when I'm talking about their dominance being somewhat inevitable, for about 18 months now, the winning margins are something that we don't generally see in that sport. You don't just run roughshod over everyone where none of the games are close.
Dan, here's one of the issues, and I say issues in the most positive way. When we talk about a great defensive team, usually it's like, what's that made of? Well, it's usually made of like a guy who's really good in the paint, and then a couple of guys on the perimeter are really good, and maybe a backup guy. So you talk about like maybe 4 or 5 really good defensive players that create the backbone of the system that everyone else, all you got to do is be decent. All you got to do is adhere to our principles, send them the way we want guys get sent, and we're going to be a great defense. That's typically how it's been. Oklahoma City has 17 dudes on their roster, and they all defend. Yeah. Every single person who plays for the Thunder, they don't have a single guy who comes in there like, he's a weak link. So when that's your starting point, when your starting point is everyone is excellent on ball, and then they're smart and disciplined off ball, and all they do is create this chaos and this pressure. The only way you can beat their defense is if you are a quick decision team that moves the ball, reverses the defense, and then you got to be able to shoot. And the problem
That's what
with that
Indiana did to bother them last year.
But it's just like the number of teams that are that disciplined offensively and they can shoot and they have a multitude of passers is very limited. And that's why there's an inevitability about this. The weird thing is the Thunder did what they did last year. And we said, oh, my God, these guys are going to win every championship until they have to break it up because of salary cap things. And then we started this year, and they started amazing. And everyone said, oh, my God, they're not going to lose a game. Then they went through a little rough patch.
Zaz thought they were going to win 80.
80.
They went through a little rough patch, and then people started trying to find reasons why the Thunder weren't going to win. I'm like, what are you talking about? You're asking all these questions. Maybe the Pistons could. I'm like, what are y'all talking about? What are you watching that's not computing? And by the way, I've said all of these words, and I have not mentioned who the presumably will be a 2-time MVP. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is so amazing. He is so fun to watch in person because of his footwork, because of his IQ, his size. And it's like the cool thing about him, and I'm a sucker for players like this, him, Steph Curry. It's when you can show me a guy, it's like, I'm not quicker than everybody. I'm not dunking on guys like Jamal Cain. I'm just going to beat you with my mind and footwork and skill level. It is so awesome to watch because it is the great equalizer. Oh, that guy has an 80-inch vertical, and he's 6'9" with a 7'12" wingspan. Okay, and?
And I think the thing we miss on SGA, which we haven't even brought up, at least today, maybe you guys brought it up last week, he's missed 2 fourth-quarter shots in like a month. Like, his numbers are insane. His efficiency is insane. I know everybody wants to talk about free throws and all that stuff, but, like, once we get past the dumb-minded free throw conversation, you look at what he does on the court, and it's like nobody can replicate what he does.
I watched him on Saturday go 15 of 18 from the field. Crazy. And 2 of those 3 misses were three-pointers. So he went, in essence, what was it? 15,
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
14.
You got it.
13 to 14.
7'12" wingspan is also 8 feet.
Dan,
It's just an 8-foot wingspan.
I do want to point out something you guys were talking about last week, which is Dylan Brooks and animosity. And I wish I was in because I wanted to point out him and SGA grew up like they're friends. They're buddies. Like there's no part of it. It's like, ugh. And SGA talked about it last night. He's like, I love Dylan. I hope he continues to improve. But there's no bad blood because these are guys that are basically brothers. They grew up together.
Well, but he called him flopping, flailing, and he made the accusations that are meant to diminish SGA. They are. And when Amin makes the point, Zaz, and it's a good one because what's special about them is their defense. Everything else is ancillary. What they smother you with is defense. When he says they have no weaknesses, Detroit yesterday, the way Orlando was attacking Duncan Robinson, just attacking him, just finding him wherever he is because Detroit's putting him in because they want three-point shooting. They want somebody who can make a shot from distance to stretch the floor. But on the other end, I'm hearing the announcers saying they might have to turn to Kevin Huerter. And I'm like, that's not a solution defensively. Like, if you think they're attacking Duncan Robinson, you don't bring in poor man's Duncan Robinson, who does the exact same thing that Duncan Robinson does.
It feels a lot like, not coincidentally, the last time an 8-1, which was 2023, and the Bucks were down 3-1 to Miami, and it was so apparent to everyone. It's like, Bucks are in big trouble. They are not going to win this series, and it kind of feels like that now, where the Pistons are in big trouble and they're not going to win this series.
But the thing, though, that I want to talk about as it relates to the specifics of OKC, this is the best Pistons season in 20-some-odd years. Like, you don't get bored with droning dominance. That's not a thing. You don't get so bored by what someone is aesthetically or dominantly that you're just bored by OKC is going to just stay right up there. They're not going to have any fluctuations. They're not going to go down. They're just going to be a team that we're looking at where Mike Ryan, nobody blinks like last week when Mike Ryan is saying Sam Presti's the best executive there's ever been, replace Jerry West. No one around here blinked. How does that happen quietly?
Well, I mean, Sam Presti's been around for a long time, and he's done, he's multiple incarnations of this Thunder team alone, let alone what he did in San Antonio as a guy in their front office there. But then I think when people say bored, I think it's a couple of things. I wonder if it was the Seattle Sonics and not the Oklahoma City Thunder, would we be bored? Like, part of it is Oklahoma. Just Oklahoma, automatically people fall asleep. Number two is also, this is a very secretive organization. I think their PR people do a great job. They're really nice, but they don't share a lot in terms of letting people in. Like, as opposed to, let's say, the Golden State Warriors, where their PR department is renowned for, like, giving access and you can talk and do features on our guys. Oklahoma City, not so much. They're a little bit more closer to the vest, so that kind of prevents the kind of storytelling around their players and around their guys that makes people get excited. And then number three, I think, like, there's something about defensive dominance that people don't like. It's not like don't like as in it's bad, but just like it makes people like Zach say this is boring.
We've heard the tropes about Oklahoma City as a market as to why this team isn't interesting. Plenty interesting when they had Durant, James Harden, and Russell Westbrook.
Yeah.
It's all about the personalities too. SGA is not that type of personality, and the front office and public relations, as Amin highlighted, isn't about putting them out there all that much.
But I would say it's the job of the media to cover the best. And it doesn't matter whether they give you storylines or not. That's nicer, but since when did we become a league where the media just talks about stories and not excellence?
I mean, for a while.
I'll refer you back to Pablo's segment. What are we incentivized by, right? So you're right. Oklahoma City is the best team, right? Oklahoma City is a team that is dominant, and it feels like it's going to be great for quite a while. How many national writers are assigned to cover the Thunder year long? Spoiler alert, none. Everyone who's a national writer has fallen it. So I just was in Phoenix again, and I saw Tim McMahon.
He's the one guy.
Tim McMahon lives in Dallas. Tim McMahon is a national writer, but it's like, okay, now it's the playoffs. I'll be following the Thunder. But he doesn't live in Oklahoma City. He's not there every day the way that Ethan Strauss and Marcus Thompson and all these guys in Golden State were, or Wendy and Tom Haberstroh and Kevin Arnovitz were down here when the Heat were great, right? They just don't have it. For the Athletic, is Joel Lorenzi, who used to be their beat writer for the Thunder, but he's moved to Chicago. He's coming back now to do playoffs. So it's like, why? You say, why? How's this possible? It's a great team. Why wouldn't ESPN and The Athletic and all these places have someone embedded at all times with this greatness, this historical greatness? And the reality is this. When they post stories about the Oklahoma City Thunder, people don't click. They don't click. They don't want to read about these choir boys that play hard. They want to read about, oh my God, did Kevin Durant quit on his team? Oh my God, are the Knicks going to choke again? Like, these.
Someone stole Jokic's underwear.
By the way, that's the dumbest story, because in the story it says, nope, he just misplaced it. But everyone just ran with, someone stole his underwear. Maybe it was Jaden McDaniels.
But for a moment they thought it was stolen.
for a moment? Like,
All right.
until paragraph 3?
Until it was found, it was stolen.
It would be hard to embezzle what I imagine something that size quietly. To me, it would be like you're running out with a tapestry of some sort. Like, what size waist do you imagine that Jokic is?
80.
The underwear being stolen was a funny story yesterday. Jokic in general having trouble with Gobert is interesting because it's the only human being I've ever seen him have trouble against. I don't think any of you have ever seen him have trouble against anybody except what Minnesota offers. But let's talk for a second about what Amin is saying there. Over the last 15 years of gossip and stardom, the NBA has always been a star league. They live now with the consequences of the fact that they've given their players a lot of stardom, and that power has turned into something that is off-putting in a lot of cases with many fans. But I do think it's interesting that after 15 years of, you got to have 3 guys, 3 stars. The most interesting OKC team is Westbrook, Durant, and Harden, even though it never won anything. We've come from 15 years of you got to have 3 guys to all of a sudden the model's back to what it was before 2010. LeBron formed the 3 guys because he couldn't get past Pierce, Garnett, and Allen. The big 3 was first in Boston, and that represents 20 years of basketball. And now this team is back to what teams used to look like, which is we've got 1 star, and then everyone else works around the 1 star.
I'm forever fascinated by the way lay people look at basketball, because you guys are like, oh, the formula is get 3 guys. No, the formula is to build the best team possible. LeBron didn't go get 2. I need 3 to counteract Boston's 3. That wasn't his math. His math was, oh, wow, I can play on this team and it's going to be great, right? Remember, Miami's plan was like, hey, LeBron's probably not going to come. It'll be Bosh and Wade. That was the plan. And LeBron was kind of like, fingers crossed, hope he comes here. And he did, and it changed everything. But the idea is I'm trying to build the best team possible. Golden State didn't get Kevin Durant because they needed it to do. They get it because he was available and they could do it.
Yeah, but you said Golden State had national writers, and it's because they had stardom. They had a bunch of guys, not 1.
Wait, now, so I'm not talking about writing right now. I'm talking about roster construction. If you want to talk about writing and media, then I go back to what are the incentives? Is it the chicken or the egg? Did they get national writers covering them because they have stars, or is it because they're informed by the metrics? Hey, people are really interested in this team, hence we'll get national writers there. That's the conversation as far as coverage goes. But as far as roster construction, no, Oklahoma City didn't go back to where it was because Jalen Williams is an all-star and an all-NBA player, and he's just hurt this year, so he's not been eligible. And then Chet Holmgren is all-world defensively and an all-star caliber player, so you could still, quote, call it a big 3, or you could say they built a team with 0 weaknesses. And if I build a team with 0 weaknesses, whether I have 1 star or 2 stars or 4 stars, it doesn't matter. What matters is when we play basketball, do we have playmaking? Yes. Do we have shooting? Yes. Do we have perimeter defense? Yes. Do we have interior defense? Yes. Right? Those are check boxes that we're looking for. And as long as we have all those things, and versatile defense, obviously, the ability to guard different size human beings, different skill human beings. As long as we have all those things, whether you want to tell me I got 1 star, 2 stars, 5 stars, 7 stars, no stars, that's all we're looking for.
Is the negativity something that makes hockey and McDavid, for example, the largest story of hockey's postseason because he's behind in that series, and we will look at the chokers? McDavid is now entering this rarefied air where you can put him in the Harden class of, wait a minute, is that something that gets turned off in the playoffs?
I think that there's something to what you're saying, but it's for mainstream attention. It's not perpetuated by the media that covers the sport as much for whatever reason. I think Amin would actually like how the NHL beat writers are caretakers of the sport and don't really play so much with that nonsense, but it's how they would talk about hockey on First Take. It's what you're most familiar with this sport. This is the driving narrative. McDavid, if he doesn't get it done now, the Panthers are out of the way. You're going to lose to Anaheim in the first round. Then you start also trafficking in, whoa, is he going to stay in Edmonton? Can he? They can't help him.
I feel like a 3-1 deficit in hockey is not as daunting as it is in
not.
basketball. So we don't live and die by, like, it will happen once he loses the series. I don't think you're hearing that down 3-1 like you would in basketball.
So Mike, you and Dan, you guys were both not here yesterday, but we talked about this and also in the idea that hockey is a game that is followed not by a lot of casuals. Most people who are hockey fans are diehard hockey fans. So most media can cater to the majority of the audience by speaking more nuance. Basketball is a sport that invites a lot more casuals who don't watch all year long and then turn on TV and say, yeah, see, that's the reason why, whatever. So because of that, there's a lot more appetite for these low-hanging fruit, salacious stories that are not necessarily nuanced or kind of measured. You can be first takey about things with basketball in a way that you can't with hockey.
But it is weird, though, to see a player of this caliber who is unstoppable all of a sudden find it hard to get out of the first round against Anaheim. They struggled early in the playoffs last year, too, where it looked like they were going to get knocked out
Not like
early.
this, though.
Not like this. I mentioned to you guys that I was in California watching when the Panthers played Anaheim. Anaheim scored 9 goals, and I was watching on a television where the sound wasn't up. So I kept thinking they were playing the same goal over and over again, and it was just that Anaheim was scoring like that again and again against the Panthers. But when you are the next Gretzky, it can't end in the first round against
No
Anaheim.
goals this series yet, Mike?
For me, the story is he's been bad.
No goals, right?
You have to grade him
injury
on
speculation?
You have to grade him on. Yeah, I mean, he did leave game 1 with an injury, but that's the NHL playoffs, babe.
Yeah, that's not an excuse.
Yeah, you get back out there. The game that everyone was saying, well, they dropped this, he was hurt. He had the second most ice time for the Oilers there. He's out there. He's got to produce. For me, the story has been with Connor McDavid over these last few games because we're dating back to last postseason because the Panthers did a good job on him too. He has not been the same in the postseason. If they go down swinging and he's the best player, then I think the narrative goes more to you got to get out of Edmonton. Clearly, what this franchise is not helping you get to where you need to go, but some of the responsibility points towards him. Like, you have to be better. You're going to get knocked out by the Anaheim Ducks?
And wouldn't it be amazing that at the end of a long, illustrious career in journalism, that Greg Cody's legacy would be he was the first one to know that dude was a fraud? How amazing would that be? It's like everything, this whole career, no one would remember anything else about Greg Cody except he was a guy. Everyone was saying Connor McJesus, and he said Connor McOverrated.
You hear that, white hat?
The McDavid thing is actually an interesting thing to support what you were saying about the NBA writers. What was the NHL community reaction to what Greg Cody was doing?
Didn't like it.
This guy's insane. What a kook. When those are storylines, those are the driving force behind. LeBron is always viewed through this Michael Jordan prism, and you can't win the big one, and Charles Barkley rings. It's totally different.
1 goal this series in Game 3 for McDavid. He's a -6 total for the series. He has not been a plus in any game
Put
yet.
it on the poll. Is that the NHL playoffs, babe? Yes or no at Le Batard Show.
It's going to be 100%.
Heard that a couple times on the RV.
Jokic, have you ever seen him look like this? Is this something that you feel like you've seen over a 4-game stretch? Because I don't recognize him being inefficient.
He's shook.
No, he's definitely struggled. I would say, we and Tony were talking about this a second ago. Draymond in 2022 locked his ass up en route to the Warriors championship. Caruso last year. Caruso did a great job on him as well, just being physical and kind of taking his legs out from under him. So I've seen him struggle, but yeah, the shooting, the missing of shots that he usually makes, that I've never seen for this extended amount of time.
I mean, this is the 3rd year in a row where he's had some trouble in the NBA playoffs. And are we starting to look at a point where we need to look at Jokic as like, all right, is it Jokic? Is it the team? Is it the supporting cast? Is it the coach? Like, what is going on in Denver that is not allowing this guy who has historic season after historic season after historic season to get to the NBA Finals?
I wish Greg were here because I'd lob him up for Nikola McOverrated.
That's your take?
We'll workshop it.
I'm just saying, like, someone can be the first on this island, much like Greg was the first on McOverrated
It can't
Island.
be Dan. Dan says he's better than Michael Jordan.
Well, Dan, I think you might want to revise that one.
I don't want to revise it just yet. He's won several MVPs in a row, and they're only going to take it away from this year because they're bored.
They're still going to win the series.
You didn't win it last year either.
Should have.
The winning of one evidently isn't enough. OKC has won one, and I can't get anybody to talk about them. Not anywhere. Not anywhere do I see anything in the way of people talking about, hey, there's one team that just ransacked the Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns, I understand it's not the same team, but they were a 1 seed a couple of years ago. Like, the staying up there is not that easy. Detroit is showing you how hard it is. Milwaukee is showing you how hard it is to stay up there.
But Dan, do you want us to talk about A.J. Mitchell coming off the bench? You want us to talk about Isaiah Joe not missing shots? Like, is that what you want? You want like hardcore Thunder talk?
Man, I'd love to talk some A.J. Mitchell, man.
A.J. Mitchell's good player.
That guy never played last year, and now he's starting for them in the playoffs.
The thing that I think is worth mentioning with OKC is, if you're bored talking about them now, what do you think it's going to feel like 4 years from now when all of these young players round into form and they get some of the guys back who haven't been totally healthy? Like, this is about the weakest as you're going to see them be, is it not?
Well,
you can't keep everybody.
You can't keep everybody.
Probably gone.
It's at some point.
Dort.
That's what the picks are for.
Yeah, exactly. That's how they got. I was watching Jared McCain. And I said, this isn't fair. How did this guy get on their team, man? Like, that's not fair. But they have this war chest of draft picks, like Mike just said, that they can just continue to replace guys with guys who are rookie scale or affordable deals. Now, the thing I'm interested in, I don't think it'll happen this year, but San Antonio is set up, the way their checking account and their saving account set up, their salaries cascade. So they're never going to have to pay all those guys all at the same time, not for like 4 or 5 years from now. As a result, they're going to be able to be cost effective and keep adding talent. And we already saw this year, 4 out of 5 times, they beat the brakes out the Oklahoma City Thunder. If they meet in the playoffs, I've got the Thunder easily because I think the experience part will rear its head. But, man, next year, 2 years from now, I don't know if I could say that.
I don't know what to do with regular season results. I know that I've only seen OKC look like that against San Antonio in 2 years. They haven't, even when they were losing to Indiana, it's not like it wasn't explainable how and why they were losing to Indiana. When you watch them play against San Antonio and they get throttled when no one throttles them, it makes me think that there are certain matchups that would apparently bother them in a way no other team in the league bothers them.
Well, some games without J-Dub, some games without Chet, some games without Hartenstein.
It was only one game that they were missing guys, the Thunder. Like, they
J-Dub's missed a ton of time this year.
No, but I'm talking about the Spurs and the Thunder. Like, 3 of those 4 wins for San Antonio were legit wins.
I think with San Antonio, there's a couple of things. Number one, they have a lot of similarities, and they got a bunch of guys, Castle and Vassell and Johnson. These guys are all great defensively, versatile. But then the other part is, you could argue that Victor Wembanyama is better than anybody on the court, which is tough because Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the MVP and is going to be a 2-time MVP when it's all said and done by the end of this season. So to say that, but we also we got to acknowledge Victor Wembanyama is a game changer. Without him, the Spurs are a really good team, as Portland learned when he sat out, right? With him, they turn into something completely another level. But again, in a playoff scenario, you still have to execute, and that lack of experience, I think, will bite them in the ass this season.
How did we feel about Riley?
With a 9-19 record, the Philadelphia Phillies have fired manager Rob Thompson.
No!
Don Mattingly takes over as the interim manager.
Yeah, good manager now.
He'll be here this weekend.
So Dombrowski and the Phillies do what the Red Sox did. I want to hear Pat Riley trying to say Wembanyama again.
Wembaya.
It's tough.
Did go right by us.
Wembaya.
Minus 54 run differential, Dan.
Wembaya.
They're really bad.
Wembaya.
What did the Eastern Conference do to Pat Riley?
Wembaya.
You're better than that.
Damn.
He said it, not us.
Wembaya.
You ought to be ashamed of yourself. Look how proud he is.
I'm not
He's
proud.
so proud right
No,
now.
That's not pride. That is not pride you see on my face. That is the smile masking shame.
Dude, you can't be mispronouncing arguably the face of the league's name.
Wembaya.
When people are questioning if you still got it.
Wembaya.
Are you saying the game?
Wembaya.
You got to get that name right.
Mbaya.
That's why you go Wemby.
Excuse me.
That's Chris after he went down to New Orleans and had some
Mbaya.
Not a soup.
Is that jambalaya? What? There's not a soup known as Wembaya.
Mbaya.